obviously I got to mention the relationship with Jamie, right? And you're doing your show with her now. You weren't doing, and I mentioned up top, you weren't doing interviews. Then you went on, you did Michael and Steve's show, and did that spark the, hey, I like doing this? Because you're great at it. You and Jamie both do your show. It's a great show. You're very comfortable with each other, obviously. Where did the idea come to say, like, let's do a show together?
So I was a big podcast guy. I love comedy podcasts. I just I could listen to 8 hours a day.
What's your shows?
I mean, I love Your Mom's House, who we're doing our podcast for now, was one of my favorites. I love anything with Bobby Lee. I think Bobby Lee's hilarious.
Bobby's the first guy, one of the first guys. Him and Mike Young were the two guys when I got there that I knew that I met at the Comedy Store when I got there. Bobby was on stage right after Mike Young with nobody in the OR, and I saw saw Bobby. I don't know, it was like 3 years ago, and I walk up to him. And Santino was another guy that I started. Well, he started after me, but he's a friend of mine. And I was at the Comedy Store, and I see Bobby Lee probably 3 or 4 years ago. He goes, big smile on his face. He goes, hey, I thought you died of COVID. I was like, that's Bobby. So I was like, you're listening to Bobby Lee, Santino, Your Mom's House.
Yeah, I'm listening to, at the time it was Tiger Belly. It was before, and I was just like, I love listening to this. I was a Howard Stern guy back in the day, and I'm like, I love listening to this. It seems like they're having so much fun. So this is 2019. I'm living in Vegas for a second time, but I'm sober. And I'm like, I hate this. Why did I do this? Yeah. But I thought, I was like, oh, I would like living in Vegas sober because I play a lot of poker. So I'm like, I would love that. It was awful. So I was like, all right, I got to get out of here. So I reached out to Jamie and another friend I had, this kid, Kasim G, who's a comedian.
Yeah.
And I said, if I moved to LA, I thought they would be great together, the three of us. And I said, if I moved to LA, would you guys start a podcast with me? And they said yes. So I moved to LA. We started the podcast, and we did that for like 3 years. And then somewhere in there, Tom Segura and Christina P said, hey, come, we want to have you on our podcast. We did their podcast. And then they said, hey, if you want to come do a podcast for our studio, we'd love it. Unfortunately, Kasim lives in LA. Jamie was in Austin. I moved to Austin. They're in Austin. And we've been, but yeah, we had our podcast before the Talking Sopranos.
I see.
Started. Yeah, but we never had any interest in talking about Sopranos. Okay. You know, we were always like, no, we want to be, I feel like if you pigeonhole yourself into talking about one thing on a podcast, whether it's 50 episodes in, 100, 150, you eventually show up one day and you go, I don't want to talk about this.
I'm sure, absolutely. So a lot of the times, I went from doing just stand-up stuff to doing just movie stuff, and movies and TV. That was what I did for a very long time. But I want to be able to do like more stuff like this. I want to be able to do more things like that, and I don't want to just talk about movies. I don't want to just talk about TV. I got a strong interest in fucking what's flying around in the sky with UFOs and stuff too.
Right.
And I talk about that. So I got all these different things that I like talking about. But so I understand that for sure, and I think that's what's great about the conversational style. And you mentioned Drea. I had her. She was the first Sopranos cast member I had virtual. I had her on. She was promoting a movie and I had her on. She was great. She was a lot of fun. But dude, you killed me with the. I was dying with the clip with the armpits, the hairy armpits, because she's the hottest thing on television.
Oh my God!
Yeah, and I'm sure, and like because they mentioned, I was going to ask you this too, and you kind of answered me when I was watching that episode, was that you would assume, because Jamie Lynn is a beautiful woman, and, and so when you would assume as a kid, you're trying, even though your brother on the show, you're probably, let's say, this guy took a shot, but you never took a shot at it.
Never.
Okay.
There was never even one day, we've talked about this before, where like there's photos of me and Jamie when we would go to like the Emmy Awards, and we'd be like back in my hotel or her hotel, and we'd be laying on the bed together, and it was always just like, no, this is like my best friend. Like she's like my sister. And again, I've talked about this too, but it's like I have two sisters in real life, and maybe there's 50 people in the world who know that that's my sister.
Sure.
And they go, how's your sister? With Jamie Lynn and Sopranos, there are tens of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands, millions of people, and maybe tens of thousands who come up to me and go, how's your sister? Where's your sister? How's your sister? Your sister. And always on the show, it's like the sister. And I think that's how it feels. Like in my head, it's like she feels like my sister. I've been told in my brain tens of thousands of times that Jamie's my sister, and they're just, we would go out to clubs together till 4 a.m. New York City drinking this, and there was never one night where it was like, oh, well, we kissed, or that. It was always like, And it was also that thing of like, she was the kid girl on the show, and all the guys were so protective of her that I felt the same way. It was always like, no, you got to watch out for Jamie. You got to look out for Jamie. I never thought of like her in a sexual way.
Makes a lot of sense also because God forbid something did happen, and then it's like that messes it up, and then that dynamic changes dramatically.
Oh yeah, and I was a drunk, so I would have messed it up right away. Yeah, it would have been good for 4 days, and then she would have been like, "Oh, Rob." Yeah, exactly.